All right, we'll make some sense of this mock draft from Mel Kiper dropping moments ago. John, you've skimmed it. You've scanned it. I want to just outline some of the more notable moves. The number 1 pick gets traded in this mock.
Mm-hmm. No surprise.
The Bears move all the way down to 2. The Houston Texans move up to 1, and in this mock draft, they select Bryce Young. No concerns about size. We can talk about that later in the hour. But Bryce Young goes number 1. Chicago, with the number 2 pick, trades down again.
Oh.
Again, they go down to 4. They trade with the Colts, who move up to take C.J. Stroud. We go QB to open the draft. But if I'm the Bears, I'm imagining they're picking up extra firsts along the way, extra draft capital along the way. They are at 4. At 3, Will Anderson gets selected by the Cardinals. Jalen Carter goes 4 to the Bears. There's another trade in the top 5 as Seattle and Carolina swap spots. And with their pick, they draft Will Levis. The Panthers take Will Levis at 5. Lions at 6. If this is how the board falls, John, what do you want them to do?
I want them to go ahead and take Tyree Wilson.
He falls all the way to 12 in this mock draft. He falls to 12 to Houston. They take Christian Gonzalez, corner out of Oregon.
See, if I'm going corner, I want to go Witherspoon. But I just don't feel at 6. If you wait at 18, you're going to get maybe not the level of corner that you would get at 6, but the drop-off isn't going to be tremendous. I'm willing to wait to 18 to take a corner that is going to help this defense.
Here's the write-up. Mel Kiper says, I wrote in January this is a little high for the Lions to take a corner. But stop. I think most people agree with that.
Yeah.
He says, but I've come around on the ceiling of this corner class. We could see 2 in the top 10. I talked to people in the NFL that believe Gonzalez is going to test off the charts at the Combine.
I hate that quote.
I hate that too. I don't want to make the decision based on exclusively how a guy performs in the underwear Olympics. But he says Devin Witherspoon and Joey Porter Jr. have a chance to be the number 1 corner as well. Gonzalez at 6'2" had a stellar season at Oregon, picking off 4 passes. Lions also have the 18th pick. They need to get plug-and-play starters. I think people would agree with that. Number 7, Witherspoon goes the very next pick. And I'm just trying to see other notables. Anthony Richardson stays in the top 10. He goes 9th to Seattle Seahawks, who made the switch with Carolina. So 4 QBs in the top 10. The other ones that jump out mentioned Wilson goes 12. And then the Lions at 18 fall 1 shy of Joey Porter Jr., who goes to his dad's team, the Steelers, at 17. They are left to take Drew Sanders, linebacker, Arkansas. For people who don't know about him, he was a heavy blitzing linebacker at Arkansas. They moved him around. I guess it helps pass rush and linebacker. What would you make of the pick?
I'm not a big fan of this one. I think there's still the ability to go and get better up front. If they've gone corner, I think the need at this point is pass rush. And I understand that, yes, this linebacker, Sanders could provide some of that, but you've got to be able to be good, I think, in that front 4, and there's still work to be done for the Detroit Lions. They can help themselves out at 18 as opposed to going linebacker. If you want to go linebacker, you can go in the second round. You've got 2 picks and get quality linebacker play in the second round.
Myles Murphy goes 20 in this mock to Seattle.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think he's going to be one of those players that will, I don't want to say fall, but he's going to, let's just say, trickle down draft boards.
Quentin Johnston goes 25 to the Giants. I'm sure Mike will be happy with that.
A player that I think I'm excited to see at the Combine because he has driven up draft boards, and that's Zay Flowers, wide receiver for Boston College. We talk about the underwear Olympics. I do want to see what he runs. I want to see him run some routes. I want a chance to look more at some of his film. But he's a player that a lot of people are very high on at the wide receiver position.
Buffalo takes Bijan Robinson 27th. And then the only other one I would touch on, Kalijah Cansey, defensive tackle out of Pitt, drops all the way to 30. The Eagles scoop him up.
Mm-hmm.
So the Lions haul in Mel Kiper's mock 2.0, Christian Gonzalez and Drew Sanders, corner and linebacker, two guys that would play right away. Maybe not people's favorite corner or favorite linebacker, but two defensive players. What's your reaction if that's the haul on the Friday morning after the draft? Right after night one of the draft, we come on the air. It's you and Stoney, and you guys are talking about Gonzalez and Sanders. How would Lions fans feel? 248-539-9797.
If this is their pick at 6 and they go corner, I think we could pretty much nail the assumption would be they haven't addressed it in free agency at all to a level of a starter coming in and playing.
Yeah, they would not have traded, obviously wouldn't have traded for Ramsey, would not have signed Bradbury or Dean.
Right.
This would be their answer at corner, the 6th overall pick.
Yeah.
Now, you tell me, last year I think Sauce Gardner kind of colors how people view the position. It takes a couple seasons to play corner at the NFL level. Sauce came in and was an elite corner immediately in man coverage. That's typically not how it goes. The speed of the game, the reaction time that you have playing at the NFL level, if you draft a corner at 6 and you think that's a plug and play immediately, the history of the sport tells you otherwise. That's hard to bank on.
It is, and I just don't think any of these guys would warrant the value that you would be placing on them with the number 6 overall pick. And it's not going to do anything to help develop a Jeff Okudah. That's part of why I haven't given up on Jeff Okudah. I don't think they should pick up his 5th-year option, but it doesn't mean he can't still be with the Detroit Lions past this year.
Correct.
They have, if he balls out, all right, they have the opportunity to still franchise him. Again, I don't want to do that, but if he plays good enough, they could keep him in-house and continue to develop him and give him a contract to stay here 3 or 4 more years. It doesn't mean, if they don't pick up his 5th-year option, it doesn't mean he's not there. But if you go and get a Jamel Dean or if you get a James Bradbury, then all of a sudden you've got a guy for him to look at and say, okay, in the room, how do I have these conversations about defending some of these wide receivers, about playing some of these coverages? We know that Jeff Okudah is good in run support, but I don't necessarily, that's not what I'm looking at for my corner.
He has had such an up and down road in Detroit, whether it's using a number 3 pick on corner immediately turned people off to him, because that's just such a high pick on that position.
And every time we talk to Dan Campbell throughout the season and we mention, hey, Jeff Okudah had a good game, he was always very measured and never really sat there and said, boy, he's really coming on.
Well, he was so bad early. He got injured. He was playing in the Patricia defense. He never really got his footing until last season. And last season was a bumpy ride. You're right. There's weeks that we would, I think, get excited hoping that he would turn into that guy. And the reality was the season was too up and down and too uneven to really proclaim him a number 1 corner. That doesn't mean he's not on your team. You don't have a team of all number 1 corners. I think you decline the option on the idea that he's hasn't played worthy of the salary, but you don't turn down the potential of extending him if he's a quality number 2 corner in the NFL. He's already in-house. He's already worked with your coaching staff. No, I don't think any of this talk about corner means anything definitively for Jeff Okudah. I think his story still hasn't been fully written.
Significant, I think, developments for the offseason actually in the last 24 hours with what came out with the Bears yesterday and leaning towards trading that pick. And you saw Kiper use that and immediately release a new mock where he thinks the Texans will be so desperate after Young that they'll actually move up 1 spot to get him. And then he's got the Colts coming up to 2 and trading with the Bears again. Now, that seems a little – 2 trades by the Bears – although possible, seems outlandish. But I think the clear thing that's come out of this, I think it has become way more favorable that QBs go 1 and 2.
Well, and the thing about Houston going up 1 spot is not that they're worried about Chicago in that position and taking a quarterback. They're worried about somebody else leapfrogging them. So they're going to have to – they have the most draft capital because if they make this trade and the Bears go down to 2, the Bears, no matter what, are still going to get their guy. Because if it's not quarterback, Houston's going to take a quarterback. Now all of a sudden the Bears go down to 2, and then they still sit in the catbird seat and say, okay, what is it that we want to do? Can we get our guy if we drop down to 4, if we drop to 5?
That's why I don't think they'll trade twice. See, to me, if If I'm them right now, and I'm not going to draft a QB. If this is
that's their decision,
yeah, then I make the Houston trade before anything because I can still get Will Anderson.
It depends if they we talked about earlier. Is there a gap? Is it Anderson, Gap, Carter? If they think it's two defenders, they have a million needs. Who the hell cares? Then they can trade all the way down to 4. The only way they would leave the top 5 entirely is if Carolina does something desperate, and I wouldn't put it past them. We've talked about how they've been QB hunting for years. They've tried. They called about Stafford. They've just been on the outside on all these quarterbacks. Does Frank Reich get in the building and go, I just dealt with this in Indy for years, where we kept switching quarterbacks every year. You hired me to be the coach. I'm an offensive guy. Put me in a position to go get a QB. Now, whether they have the willingness to give up what it would take to go to 1, I feel like it's a lock Carolina's trading up in this draft. They're not going to sit at 9, miss all the QBs, and twiddle their thumbs. I mean, that doesn't make any sense for them. That division is wide open in the South. Now, if you're Chicago, are you willing to move all the way back to 9? It depends.
No, you're not.
Well, what if you get 3 firsts? I mean, again, you have to. Chicago's in a great position to demand things of multiple teams.
Maybe they get 2 firsts and DJ Moore or something like that to go along with Justin Fields. There's a lot of ways you could slay it. I'll just say this mock right here, where 2 QBs finally go 1 and 2, the 2 that we've always thought I think would, and the fact that Will Anderson is there at 3. And then you see what the Lions got at 6 and 18. This is why I've been hammering the point is I give up 6 and 18 and without a blink to get Will Anderson, because I'd rather have him than Gonzalez and
Drew Sanders.
Come on, guys, think about that.
No, I agree.
This is why we need the Lions fans. If you want Will Anderson, you need to be rooting to somebody else to get this number 1 pick.
You've also got to be rooting for for Arizona to want to make that trade, because they may want.
It is an overpay a little bit to give 6 and 18.
It is by the trade chart. I think even by the trade chart, you could offer 6 and the 2 seconds, and it's an overpay. So you can go to them and try to broker a deal 1 of 2 different ways. They have enough assets, the Lions do, to make it happen. And Arizona is also a team who, quite frankly, should be interested in trading back. They have a million needs. They're at square one. They're going to be awful again this year. They should be open to trading back.
Cardinals have a new GM. If I'm him, and Brad Holmes is calling me and saying, here's 6 and 2 seconds. I'm saying, Brad, I know you want Will Anderson. If you want Will Anderson, you're giving me 6 and 18. And I'm saying, okay, bye. That's how simple it is. I'm doing it because Gonzalez and Sanders, come on, guys. You have an opportunity to get one of the best defensive prospects coming out in years versus those 2. That's an outcome. I know you might take Witherspoon instead, John, at the corner there, or Joey Porter Jr.
Not at 6.
You're going to take Wilson there. Would you rather have Wilson and Gonzalez? Gonzalez sounds like you're not falling to 18. This is my point.
No, you don't have to sell me on it.
Yeah,
if I get Will Anderson, I'll go up to 3.
I'm to the point where I think most people at this station are on board with this, and we need David Hall to start praying.